Soup.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Good Soup. I'm Sam Prime, and today we're going over the top 10 most tilting cards in our experience. We'll also have some honorable mentions we'll hit you with. To my left, I have Tori Kelly. How you doing, Tori?
Doing great. I'm glad to be here. I love talking about salty cards.
You got any monsters in your closet over there? I see your jacket hanging.
No, I don't.
How you doing, Brian? Thanks for joining us.
Doing well, thanks. Good to be here.
Good to see you. You're not eating a sandwich today, but a little sad about that. And John, how you doing, John?
Doing great. Love to be here again.
Man, anyway, episode 3. I'm so excited. We always forget to tell you guys to like and subscribe, so do all that jazz. Let's just jump straight into it. We're going to really quick. We're going to breeze through the honorable mentions. Up first, Sid Rendell.
For Sid Rendell. Sid Rendell was a card that I brought to the attention of the group because it's a silver bullet, and I think all silver bullets should be seen through the scope of a lot of players being salted depending on where you're playing, and just Sid Rendell shuts down a lot of interactions, particularly LBs. So it's something I think we should at least mention.
A lot of these cards will not make the list for personal reasons, or like they just didn't tilt enough, blah, blah, blah. Sid Rendell didn't make the list simply because it's not as strong as the other cards, or it's not as tilting as the other cards that made the list, but it is it's definitely up there. It was a good choice, a good last minute decision. We have Wool 7.
Yeah, that card is awful. I hate it. I hate all the cards that are like reveal top X or like flip X cards or Y cards or Z cards. And like the variance that Wall 7 adds to the game is just something I don't enjoy. Like sometimes it just whiffs and you paid 7 CP for a 9k. And then other times it like summons Gilgamesh plus X-Star plus something else and then just OTK. I've seen people die on turn 2 to Wall 7.
My brain just exploded because I was going to tell you thank you for bringing up the flip top X cards because they do tilt people and they're not going to make the top list, but they're not going to make the top list for a similar reason. Like Corilla didn't make the list, Wall 7 didn't make the list because they rely on a different card that you need to hit, and without hitting that card, they're not nearly as powerful. And there's always a particular card that they need to hit. But when you said it, it made me realize that I played Hithlo at Worlds. I don't like top X cards. I played Hithlo at Worlds, and I tilted the fuck out of some people. Like, actually tilted the fuck out of some people. Anyway. The next group is a real quick group. We're going to put them all together. Refia, Ferris, Wall 4, Titus, Mist Dragon, and Amaterasu. All those cards can, well, unironically, all be played in one deck. And just real quick, if you don't know what those cards are, you haven't been around the competitive scene very long, those cards are insane. But the reason that they're not making my tilt list is because a lot of them, Titus, Wall 4, Refia, and Ferris all require some amount of work for you to do and for you to put in the work and have some counterplay to them, but particularly just like setting up backups and stuff. And like I feel like you kind of earn those things eventually. Yes, when you play Wall 4 or Refia, the game kind of runs away, but you kind of earned it. You know, you're playing 4 different colors. Like you worked hard. The Amaterasu and Mist Dragon don't make the list, even though I do think they can be tilting because it's like when they have it, they have it. But I think that you should be playing around them more. And if you didn't play around the Mist Dragon, you didn't play their Amaterasu, that's on you. I know Tori's not going to just jam a realm into an Amaterasu unless he has to. You know, it's very easy instead of jam the Tibus, force them to hold the Amaterasu, and then they just lose the game with an Amaterasu in their hand. So you don't have to tilt around these cards if you play a little smarter. Rajan Fujin, what do you guys think about Rajan Fujin? Those are close. At least Rajan, like Fujin might be a problem, but I could see Rajan also being on the list of like tilting cards.
I mean, I put Rajan and Fujin on my list that I sent you.
I had it as well.
Yeah, I think those cards are extremely problematic, especially Raijin, obviously. But personally, if I control the ban list, I'd probably just hit Fujin instead.
Yeah.
I think that Chaos having 1 haste is fine.
Yeah, I can see that.
2 hastes.
I can see that. The other thing, and so just so you guys understand, they made really good points where they said like they are a problem. The cards on my list didn't necessarily make the list because they are a problem. There are a lot of cards that are going to make the list that aren't a problem. And for example, the number one the number one honorable mention is going to be Opus 1 Minwoo. And that's just the backup that's 3 CP water. And it says that if forwards you control don't take damage less than their power, basically. And it was the reason it made the list, and maybe even like 3CP Astola from Opus 5 would make that list too, because back in those formats, you couldn't do anything about it. So, for example, like, let's say you came in and you're like, you're a mono fire gamer, and you're like, I want to play mono fire, like, this seems kind of cool. You literally couldn't beat a Minwoo. Like, you had no way to beat a single deck with a Minwoo in it, period. And then the same was kind of true for Astola, right? So if you had an Astola, the fire deck couldn't beat you. Like, they just had no way to get around it. Minwoo was particularly busted. If you had an Ash with the Minwoo, you could not be stopped. Which is, you know, so it was a high on the tilting list. The last one we'll mention, and this was on a lot of you guys' list, was Lev 6. And Lev 6 is a Tilton EX burst, but here's the reason it didn't make the list. We're gonna go straight into number 10, and let's see, number 10. Let me get up on the screen for you guys. These guys haven't seen it yet. Number 10 is 7 CP Odin. This card is so much more tilting than Lev 6 for one reason, two reasons, and 2 reasons only. And those 2 reasons have a lot to do with each other. One, why do you have a 7 CP card in your deck that kills a single forward? And why are you playing lightning cards? Those 2 reasons alone lead to, look, if I could beat by a Lev 6 and you're playing like Yuna and you have ways to like get stuff back and like you're doing you're setting up the top of your deck with Astrologens, Lev 6 is kind of a good card when it's used in the right context. You got Luna Freya, right? It all in color. Odin has like Seymour, and even then, that was not even until Opus 7, I think. This was probably one of the most tilting cards back in like old school Final Fantasy TCG. You hit this card, you lost the game. You went over to your friends, and you're like, yeah, I lost to a Odin. EX Odin again. There was an entire meta game in California whose decks were built around playing this card. What do you guys think about Odin 7?
Also, it's tilting when you draw it and you don't see it in your EX first. So it's tilting for both sides. I do agree. Historically, I don't like. I would say like there's a better version of it being played now with like the 9 CP Odin that serves the same
Purpose.
function in a deck purpose.
Mhm.
But yeah, historically, it's a very tilting card to see in the EX burst. I would still hate to see it in the EX burst, the same way I hate seeing the 6CP Levy. But I do agree. Like, it's a card that when you see it, it's like, why are you playing this? And if I'm playing it, why did I just draw this? And it didn't hit the EX burst. So yeah.
Well, the thing with this card is that it's just bad. Like, there is no excuse to even running this anymore. It's like even like
that's why it's frustrating. That's why it's tilting. It's
why is
so
there a bad
bad.
card in your deck? Yeah,
I
I know.
With the 9CP.
But yeah, I personally don't like running cards that I have no intention of ever casting, and their whole purpose is just, well, hope I hit the EX burst. And so when I play against them and I hit the EX burst, yeah, that tilts me off the face of the planet. I think Lev 6 is still more tilting for me, just because you're more likely to see it in a game, because it's like,
because you're playing it. That is why you're more likely to see it, because it's seeing play. Like,
yeah.
But here's
also,
the thing. Let's say at Nationals.
For one though, right?
Listen, at Nationals, you're playing against Greg. All right, on feature match on the table. All right, and he hits any card to damage. If it's Odin 7, you're getting up and you're walking away. You're like, I lost on stream to Odin 7. It's actually worst case scenario, right? Would you agree?
I know that's tilting, but like when I played against Mike Powell on a stream, he hit damage 1, Lev 6, when his only forward on board was Shantoto LB.
Yes, but if he had hit,
it did the same thing.
But if
he got realm back,
if he had hit, if he had hit 7-drop Odin, he would have just conceded, because it's so bad that he's losing to this card, doesn't deserve to play. That's how bad that is.
I get you, yeah.
So that's why Lev 6 didn't make it, and Odin Odin 7 did make it. All right, let's move into the next card. And I have to say, this wasn't originally on my list. You guys brought it up, and I was like, yes, I fucking hate this card. I hate fucking losing to it. I don't even play it. However, I did play it in Mono Earth, and that card is 2CP Zidane. When it comes in to the field or attacks, you reveal the top card of their deck. You can play it at any time, which is no business. Doesn't make any sense. You don't need to cast it right then and there. You can cast it 12 turns later, anytime. You can cast it with any mana cost, or CP cost. So if you get a wall 4, the game is over. That's just how that card reads. And it also can do it again when it attacks. It can get haste. I will say, not only is this card tilting to play against, right? Because so I'm in this position where I was playing what I thought was the best deck in the format, Earth, Water, Art, Chaos. I loved it. It was so much fun. The problem is that every single time you played against Zidane, all your cards are good. What, am I going to play bad cards so that Zidane flips are bad? Every single card they flipped was amazing. And I was just like, what am I supposed to play? Just bad cards? And on top of that, the best card in the win mirror, like whoever hits their Zidanes just wins. How is this card not this card might have even been number top 3. This card's so insane.
Yeah. Every time I play against one of these, the first thing it steals is Amat. Just every time. And the moment they steal the Amat, it's just like, wow, how am I gonna kill Zidane now?
Did Hunter not lose worlds to that exact scenario?
Yes, he did. Isn't it just great? Isn't this card amazing? Why does this exist?
I'm going to make an argument against it, and that's because I just don't know the rest of the list yet. But for the same reason that Odin is more tilting the 6CP Levy, I think Mind Flayer it's more tilting than this card.
No.
It's the same.
No.
Oh. When my opponent plays Mind Flayer, I laugh because they spent 4 CP for that, and that's fun.
And then I lose. And then
hold on.
Why are you losing to Mind Flayer?
I will raise you though. Here's the thing. There is possibly a card that is more tilting that we forgot to mention.
Terra?
No. Lonnie.
Which one?
The 4 CP.
The fire one.
The fire one. The 4 CP. It flips the top card of your opponent's deck upside down. They hide it, and you can play it at any time for 2 CP. Now, here's why I think that for 2 CP less, it costs 2 CP less. If they don't play it, the card just stays exiled upside down. It's face down.
It's the only card in the game that exiles face down.
And there are so many times that my opponent have cast that against me, and I'd be like, I need to search my deck right away. I need to cast a search card because I need to know what they have. I need to know what they have access to. Again, I'm only playing decks with good cards. It could be anything. It could be an Amaterasu. It could be a Mist Dragons, a Kuchlight, a Chocobo. What am I playing around right now? And it's going to cost 2 less. I don't know. Maybe that card could have made the list too. That's a good point, John. I think that the Mind Flayer argument actually makes that card even seem more tilting.
I mean, I've had it been played for free with Terra, and it's the worst. I've lost against my own cards because of that, and being replayed with Une and Terra, it's horrible. But yeah, I feel like that effect alone, stealing cards and using them against your deck, is really, really tilting. And I'm starting to get high blood pressure right now, just thinking of the games that I lost against my own cards.
Against Ghoul at Winter Cup last year, his Zidane stole 2 CP Warrior of Light that generates crystals, and then also stole my Ninja that spends crystals to bounce things. I was livid. I was so mad. Especially because I was playing a bounce deck, right? So normally when he steals my things, I can just bounce them back to my hand. But since he played the Warrior of Light that generates the crystal, that thing can spend a crystal to make itself untargetable. So I couldn't even bounce it back to my own hand.
Yeah.
I was not happy. Yeah, Zidane tilts me.
All right, so going into the next one, I think that this next one, you're going to start to understand how I curated the list a little bit more when you see this next card. Because no, it's not played that often. So I think there are some people who think that it was never good. And that is Unit 5. So Unit 5 is an EX first, but here's why it's tilting. Here's one of the reasons it's tilting. It's kind of like when you play a Ristic Studying Commander and you're just like, do you pay the one? Do you pay the one? Do you pay the one? Your opponent is constantly trying to put their stuff in the break zone, and you're like, remove it, remove it, remove it. And you have to tell them every time. And I think that that's kind of like you get into this like game where you like try to like put it in the break zone. Does my guy hit the break zone? Does my failed Thanos hit the break zone? Shoot 3 of your guys, and the thing is that like you can also just use this to your advantage. Like I got a lot of shit talked against me because at the Nationals that I won, I had a unit on board and I just didn't remove anything my opponent was putting in the break zone until they went to remove the card that matters. And then I was like, remove it. Because I knew that they would stop playing around me removing their cards because I don't have to remove it. And I think that alone showed me how tilting this card could be, even as a spectator. Because you're like, oh, he didn't remove it. He didn't remove it. He didn't remove it. Did he remember? Did he remember? Did he say? Did he motion? This card is actually kind of tilting.
It should just be mandatory. The fact that there's no effect going on the stack or anything, and that it's constantly like has an effect that's going to continuously occur over and over and over again, but you have to like remind your opponent every single time, is just ludicrous. Like these kind of effects in other card games, I know, just blanket everything gets removed. That way, there's no like arguing later about whether or not it should have been removed or not, or blah 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 blah. Just they get removed, no questions asked. I think that would just have been a lot cleaner design.
No.
There's an illusion that it would be like the same type of interaction as with Green Cecil, but it's not. And just because of that slight difference, it makes it more tilting. Because you can actually control the perception of like how you're triggering your cards.
And not most people are running backup breakers at all to just have an answer for it. So most of the time they're just like, okay, I can't stop that. I need things to go to the break zone. Like if you're playing Chaos, guess what? Everything's being removed.
Well, not in the case. It's from play.
Right.
Yeah, it's from play.
So but, it doesn't prevent the Raijin.
But historically, there were times where Unit H was quite good. I mean, people who were good at the game were playing it in their good decks. Waterwind particularly.
I was testing in Waterwind. I was going to say earlier this year, but I guess it's technically last year now.
And the Japanese deck that was literally called Return This Deck to the Gods played it, and it was very good. But that deck also had Riku, which probably should have been a consideration for this list, and in fact it was. But you touching on like that effect should have been mandatory. Like changing text on cards the way they work is also why this next card is on the list. So what are we coming in at number, let's see, that's 10, 9, 8. We're at number 7 here. We might go to 11. We'll see. Evray. Now, look at Tori's face. He's like, wait. Now, hold on a second.
Wait.
Now, listen.
Not my baby.
Listen.
This better be the only monster on this list.
No spoilers, but probably. The reason that this is on the list, because this should have had tap to do this, right? Like the number of times that I've asked my opponent to please start remembering when they Evray. Now I know that like I should also remember it, but like there's so many times that like I'm very sure my opponent Evray. They're like, have I Evrayed this turn? And I'm like, yes, you did it here. They're like, are you sure? And it's just like, yes. But there's no way to indicate on the card, I mean, that you've Evrayed this turn. And so, and you can't even technically dull it because there are things that affect dull characters. So there's no real indicator that you've used this card. Maybe you pull it slightly out of your sleeve on the turns you've used it, but that's obnoxious, especially because your turns are already ridiculously long on your combo turns. Maybe not for the monster decks, but for the storm decks, like
they're long for me too.
Sure, but for the storm decks, they're much longer, right? And they're counting storm counts, and so they're trying to keep track of these numbers. And then, hey, by the way, did I use my Evray? And you know that 1 CP is really important. What do you guys think about Evray?
I like that it doesn't tap itself because it means I can use this effect and then attack with Gal targeting the Evray later in the turn.
The question isn't do you like it? The question is, do you think this is a tilting situation that you find yourself like even saying, saying, did I use Every? Have you ever? Let me ask you this, Tori. You've played it.
I've asked my opponent, have I used Every this time?
Yes.
But
Here's the worst thing.
I've done it.
Here's the worst thing that I've done.
Player thing, not a card thing.
Here's the worst thing that I've done, and I wonder if you've done it too, Tori. Have you ever just not used your Every because you don't remember if you used it and you're too embarrassed to say, did I use my Every? Because there's been times where I'm like, did I Every? Pass. I'm just like, I don't think I used my Every.
No, I don't think I've ever done that. In that situation, I ask my opponent, and then what I do is I just like relive the whole turn up until that point. Like usually I don't go past like cast 6 or so.
Okay, so I'm your opponent here. I'm your opponent here. Do you see why that's annoying me?
Yeah, because then I have to read. Because then, yeah, it takes like an extra like 30 seconds to figure out.
And like, why can't you know if you used your Every? Like I'm not saying that I shouldn't know, but it's so tilting that like this card has no indicator.
Yeah. Also, every opponent always says, "Yeah, I think you used it." Like, fuck off.
Yeah, you're never gonna go like I used.
You know.
For me, this card brings up an argument that I've always been tilted by, but it's not tied to a card. It's tied to the rule that you cannot take notes in this game. And I've always been tilted about that because coming from Magic, I always have a little notepad where I take notes about the actions that I should be remembering that are hard to remember. And I don't think it's Everett's fault. Leave Everett alone. I think it's, the fact that we can't have any markers in the game for cards like this. So
I think note taking would fix this card. Absolutely.
Yeah. I agree.
I think it would make other cards much more obnoxious, particularly Firewind Zidane. But like, yeah, I think that this would that would be a good one. All right, let's move on to this one. This one I think is a hot take. This one was Brian's recommendation. I immediately dismissed it. I was like, no, it's not that big of a deal. It's fine. And then I changed my mind because I remember playing against the card. And that card is Althea. The problem with Althea is that once their Althea activates, you just feel like there's really nothing you can do. Like you're just like you're gonna lose the game, and that's obnoxious. Like that's so obnoxious. They would use their Althea, do their little thing, and then replay their Althea. And they're not even doing fair things with Althea. They're like playing 3C Zane, taking your best card, bouncing with Althea, taking your next best card again. Like nowadays, thank God this card's gone. Because nowadays it'd be like, by the way, that's my second cast, untap 2 backups, play something else. Every, did I Every this turn, by the way, already? I forgot. This card was kind of obnoxious.
To me, it was actually a mini Every because you get to activate one character, and it's not even a backup. You can choose a forward. Imagine with 4 CPU war, you can basically 5K something else again. But for me, the reason why I put it on my list is because really, let's say you're trying to get rid of it, you're trying to interact with it. If they do the cast 2, cast 3, and reactivate their backups, he can just do the Althea effect again and bounce another card, or just. You have no response to it, right?
Total.
Yeah, watching Althea bounce Shantoto was a tilter. Was a real tilter.
It has tilted me personally. I've been hurt with this card before.
I remember didn't Chris do that to you in the Puerto Rico LQ?
I believe so. I don't want to remember this time of my life, so let's continue on. But I do believe Althea hurt me personally.
What tilts me about this card is that everyone mispronounces her name. It's not Althea. This whole community pronounces it Althea. I'm the only one that has played her game. It's Althea. And this whole community is gaslighting me into thinking her name is Althea. And I played the game like 10 years ago or whatever. Even it was more than that. It was like 13 years ago now. I think it came out in 2011. It came out, I believe, when I was a junior in high school.
What do they call that effect? Like where like everyone does something, and so like now you're like.
Yeah, it's the Mandela effect. But yeah, so like I played this game like 13 years ago or whatever, and then like I come and start playing this game. Everyone's talking about how good Althea is. I look at the card and I was like, God, isn't her name Althea? Surely this whole community can't be wrong. Yeah, no, it's Althea. I went and had to look up the game and like find cutscenes from the game and see people pronouncing her name. It's
to be
Althea.
fair, you only know that if they've pronounced it though. It is spelled Althea.
Yeah.
You can make an argument either way. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
The game has voice acting.
All
I
right.
know how it's pronounced.
The next,
You're still trying to gaslight me.
For me, that's Titus and Titus.
oh, that's fair. That's fair. The next card requires no type of pronunciation mistakes to figure out what this is. This card, I think, for a long time could have been number one. For a long time, this card could have been number one. I will say, I've played a fair amount. I've won a fair. Now this was during COVID, so I've won a fair amount of COVID tournaments, so online tournaments with this card. I think that people wanted this card banned when it was spoiled. Like, people were like livid about this card. Do you guys have any guesses to what this card is? Old card, Opus 12.
Is
Now-
it dark?
It is dark. It is the Dark Neo X Death. When this card was spoiled, people were livid. Now, did it live up to its thing? I don't know. I mean, to be fair, you also had Soldier, you know, like, so you have ways to search this card back in the day. Soldier,
No.
yeah, there's also the win backup that also searches for Sarah Mobius. So this card was so tilting because you have a few options, right? If they're on the draw, right, you could play Neo X Death, and they just can't play any cards until they have a way to get rid of it. Now, granted, it's much worse now. Like, you could cast a Leo, draw a card, and you have something to sack. You lost one card. But back then, if you had nothing to play, it was just discard 2, pass, or play 2 backups, lose one of them. It was extremely toxic is a good word to use it, because also if you say something, you could say something silly like, well, you know, it wasn't too long after that you got Lev 6. You could just Lev 6 this. Lev 6 wasn't even played right away. Like, to be fair, because we didn't have as much way to set it up, and we were in the EX Burst meta that we're in now. We're in a very different meta than then. This card was so tilting. What do you guys think about like Neo X Death? So picture you go to locals. You're just playing Tori. You're playing your realm deck. Yes, you have some Unes. Yes, you have some Lev 6s. You don't always draw them. Your opponent, you go turn 1, back up. Your opponent goes Neo X Death. Like, how do you feel?
I feel really sad because Realm's end phase targeting ability is fucking mandatory. We have to target him. It's so sad. The thing is, I've actually earlier this year we actually tested a bunch of Realm decks against some Neo X Death style decks just to see how it would work. And the introduction of LB just absolutely neutered this guy. Any deck that's running Leo can just sacrifice a Leo every turn, and you just don't care. It's like, if your opponent's just sacrificing a Leo every turn, it's basically just discarding a card from your opponent's hand every turn. But if you're going to do that, just play Rufus. Rufus is cheaper. So he's really fallen out of favor. I know he picked up in favor at the end of last year. So I keep saying last year. In Opus 21 meta, I know people were starting to play him again because he had like an okay matchup into Wall 7, right? Because that deck does a lot of targeting and has like no easy way to kill him. And because I thought I might play against it, that's the reason why I added the Wind Cerberus into my my Water Wind deck, was entirely just to kill this fucker. Because I was like, no, I'm not losing to Neo X Death. Yeah, I don't think he should exist. Personally, I know he's not good, but he's not fun. Why is he in the game?
Brian, are you allowed to play this card at locals?
Actually, that was something I was going to bring up because at locals, this was banned for the longest time.
Is it still banned? Or has it just been banned so long that people don't remember that it's banned?
Exactly. Oh, I mean, we got new locals, new circulation come in, and no one knows about this card, and for good reason. So we definitely don't want to bring this back. But there's some people that suggested. I mean, of course, like Tori said at the end of 2023, when it started bringing up favor, people were putting it in their decks, and just turn 1 playing it, and you're just like, okay, I just need a board wipe, or I need something no, it's going to cost too much. You're just going to lose. So.
Yeah, I do think it's fallen out of favor a lot more often. You know, even back, so like I think back then, like, you know, like Tori said, like the Leo makes it a lot worse. Another card that makes it a lot worse is just Luna Freya. Like, because you could Luna Freya, as long as you discard a water form to Luna Freya, if you hit a Lev 6, you're like, fine, right? Like, I don't want to do the math right now, but it seems like you probably spent 2 CP Maybe you didn't spend any CP. I'd have to do the math. You might not have spent any CP. Like, you're going to lose Yulin Freya.
You lose one card.
Yeah, so you spent 2 CP to get rid of their 6 CP 10k bet.
You also lose 3 cards out of your LB deck.
No, that's true. There's an they're probably dead.
3 cards.
Yeah, like their deck also had Neo X death. But this card was really tilting. And I played it a lot. Not because I was trying to tilt my opponents, because I just love the play style of like protect the Baneslayer Angel, right? Like this is my Baneslayer Angel. Maybe he's on the opposite side of like the good versus evil spectrum. But this is my nun. Oh, I want to say God or whatever it is, the character type. It's just nun that I have to protect. And for me, I think that this card was really high on the list of tilters.
Now that I think about it, there is a monster I think that could go on this list that other than Evray.
I'm listening.
Speaking of your long control games, there doesn't have to be any ice monsters on this list, is there?
So we talked about Gesper as an honorable mention. What else were you thinking?
Scale Toad.
Because I was thinking of Scale Toad.
Scale Toad!
We totally forgot about Scale Toad.
Coming in at number 11 is Scale Toad. Take it away, guys.
I can't believe I forgot about Scale Toad. It was not until we were talking about Neo XF forcing a discard every turn that I was like, wait a second. There is a cancer monster. Scale Toad's the worst. Why does it exist? The funny thing is, I don't even think Scale Toad's good. I've tried to build so many Scale Toad decks, and just like like your win rate goes down the moment you play it, but it doesn't change the fact that the moment you play it, your opponent gets so frustrated that they just want to leave.
It's satisfactory, yeah.
I will say that my win rate, I've played a lot of Scale Toads, and my turn 1 Scale Toad win rate is pretty high. Like high enough to like win entire tournaments for lots of money. Like Scale Toad, yeah, I think now it's much worse. But I think there are definitely times in the metagame and possibly in the future. I mean, isn't the entire like new Realm deck, the new FF6 Realm deck, just trying to like put this into play? Like that's the whole thing that Realm is trying to do, is put this Scale Toad into play. I'm not saying that deck's good, but I'm saying that like they're literally like, this card's so scary that that's what they're trying to cheat into play.
Yeah. I mean, last year I was running Ice, Earth, Water, and like my turn 1 goal was Sarah search the backup Leo, play backup Leo, summon Larcacus from deck. Larcacus summon Scale Toad out of the break. It was my turn 1 goal.
I made the same deck.
Let me tell you, it tilted the hell out of people when you did that. But but if you didn't do that, it was like really sad. Like if you draw Scale Toad on like turn 3 or turn 4, you're just looking at this card and you're like, well, I'm never playing this.
Yeah, and so how many do you run? Like that's the thing. You like run one, so it's like really good. If you run like one, maybe you never see it.
Exactly. And then like if you play a turn 1 Scale Toad in this meta in Swiss, and then you're playing against like Knights or Chaos, good luck. They were dumping their whole hand anyway.
Yeah. Actually, for what it's worth, I do want to real quick go over. You mentioned earlier like you could just be playing Rugnagene. Like I skipped the Sky Serpent, General Rugnagene, and Rufus, and you said you could also be playing Rufus for the other thing. Like I skipped those 2 cards because they're tilting together more than anything. So those are like honorable mentions I do want to throw out there. Rufus is good by himself. No, you know what? Rufus should make honorable mention by himself. Would we agree on that? Like Rufus is like, when my opponent goes turn 1 Rufus, sometimes if my hand's not good, I'm in a lot of trouble. And sometimes they're just dead because they did that. Like if I'm holding a realm, like they've lost the game, right? But if my hand's like a bunch of backups I need to like curve out really nicely, like I could be in a lot of trouble with just a Rufus, or if they follow it up with other things, which often the Rufus players do.
Yeah.
So I see Rufus being there.
I want to look back in like memory lane to just mention 2 cards that at some point they had a similar perspective on both sides of the field as Rufus does now, or maybe that Rufus did probably like a season ago. And it was like I would say 7 CP Sephiroth. That's the only card that allowed you to discard 2 cards.
I considered
the other one was
on my list.
the 4 CP Genesis, which was also something that was really powerful for a great while. And it had, I think it was eventually was really outclassed by cards like Rufus, but it represented like the same idea for a great while in Mono Ice or Ice decks, Ice Fire, and things like that.
Yeah, I will say that typically those decks didn't play turn 1 Genesis. It was really obnoxious, but it had to hit you, right? And that's the thing. It would dull freeze something when it came in, and then when it hit you, discard. But this card just does either or. Like when it comes in or hits you, it's just, it really is Super Genesis.
Another card that was really fucking tilting turn 1 was the huge Dark Sephiroth when they played a backup. It was the only card that destroyed. Was it destroyed?
ACP's out.
Oh, the ACP.
Yeah, that card was really fucking tilting. Turn 1 Sephiroth.
That was tilting in the same way Odin is. Why are you losing to the ACP's Dark Sephiroth?
8K first strike.
I'm glad you brought it.
My favorite play turn 1 Mono Ice was going second, playing 4 CP Celeste and freezing the backup. That was the only card that could freeze backups or characters at that point.
Yeah,
really good card.
Yeah, it also like was like it dealt like with a lot of ping damage in like Ice Lightning decks or Ice Earth decks. Yeah, that was a good card. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up big
for that effect now.
The backup Jilda bot targeted forwards, right?
Yeah, and that was I will say that would be up there with the Odin 7 as far as like tilt and EX burst to hit is like you'd hit that card and then your opponent would just like win the game. Also, so going back to that old style meta game, another card to consider is 2 CP Shiva. So 2 CP Shiva, when you would be in an attrition war with your opponent, if you drew the 2 CP Shiva, like they'd be like attack phase, you'd be like duel your 2 guys, and now you're dead when I attack. Or like similar, like you could just be like, my turn, like I'm going to attack, I'm going to duel your 2 blockers and win the game. Like the 2 CP Shiva just ended games, and it wasn't even that good of a card. It just ended games for no reason. Speaking of both, this is like long before Tory time. Speaking of expensive dark cards and discarding, I have to say that this card has a huge place on the list, and for a few reasons. Now, I just told you I didn't put Rufus Rogunji on the list because they worked in tandem. And this card really relies on 11-drop Chaos. But it's going to make the list for 2 reasons. 1, when you do have the Chaos, it is a 0 CP card that kills something and makes your opponent discard 2 cards. It has no business having that text. It could have just said can't be reduced by more than 5. It could have, there's a lot of things it could have said that it doesn't say. But the reason that it did make the list and the others didn't is because I've probably never tilted more in my life than fucking drawing too many arcs. And there is something to say about a card that's really good that you don't want to draw too many of. There are times in the metagame where if I draw Chaos Arc in my opening hand, I knew there was no way I was going to lose. And there are times where I had 2 arcs and I'm dead on the spot. You guys have had arcs cast against you. Some of you have played with arcs. What do you guys think about arc?
It's not fun when it resolves. Luckily, there's a lot of ways to make sure it doesn't resolve. You can kill your own things. You can bounce your own stuff back to hand. You can just rush the Chaos Arc player down.
But not even just from a competitive perspective. Your first example was you can kill your own things. Do you think that people show up to locals? Yeah, but you show up to locals and the card makes you kill your own things? Like otherwise you discard 2? I mean...
Do you know how many goblins I've targeted my own forwards with just to deny these stupid arcs? So many goblins. So many goblins have died to kill my own forwards.
Just so you can keep 2 cards in hand?
I'm losing the forward either way. Cracking a goblin to draw 2 cards is worth it.
I would agree.
It like all the time. And then like, it is what it is, but it has counterplay. Now, the problem is when you can't do those things, it's really annoying. Like I've used Witch to shrink herself to deny an arc. It feels terrible, but you do what you have to do. I don't know. I don't like this card, but like maybe it's just I just play decks that are good against it, so like it doesn't really affect me that much.
I will say
the longest time.
But
Sorry, for the longest time, like drawing that card and actually not drawing it, having the chaos in play and not even knowing if your opponent has that card or not would immediately lose you the game, because you would play around this card and eventually like allow your opponent to settle the game against you, and with time alone. Like this card strikes fear into people not being played. Like just having
Yes.
the chaos in play and having that card in the deck is enough to tilt people.
yeah, I think on stream in Chicago, you see like a really good match where I'm playing against the Nice guy, Dorian, and so often he had to play around the arc that I never had. And it won me the game. And I think that going back and watching that stream is probably tilting because I didn't have it, right? Or if you could do the exact opposite, which again is maybe the reason why I think this is tilting. Not even when you draw too many. Against Mike Powell on the Refia deck, I drew no arcs and I couldn't arc him. And it was really tilting. This card, not just a personal experience though, I will say that I think it actually hurt my locals. I think we had a lot of Earth Water players showing up with this. There was some Wind Lightning players, and then there was a lot of Earth Lightning players. And I think at one point there was we had an FF10 player playing Chaos Arc. There was over 7 or 8 people playing Chaos Arc at locals. And like Travis was like, for example, like Travis was like, I don't want to play locals anymore. Like everyone just Chaos Arcs me all the time. I just have to like play Mono Wind or Mono Fire. Like I can't play any colors because like it's a Chaos Arc. Just everyone's playing Chaos Arc. It actually, I think, crashed our locals for a little bit. Brian, I'm interested to hear if you guys have any type of similar experience from your locals. I know you're a big local guy. Do you guys have a lot of Chaos Arcs? Like, what's happened with you guys?
To be honest, I go to two different locals. One with Eric, me and Tori, where Eric plays Chaos against me all the time, right? And it's just hard to beat the deck. I'm tilted every time he plays it. I ask him to play a different deck every time. But in the locals in Virginia with Sydney, there's only one person that plays it, and it's really rare that he plays it because he prefers Cat 13. But everyone asks him not to play that deck because it's just not fun. It seems boring out for some people that they're just like, oh, I'm just gonna lose. I don't have answers to this and that. So like for us at a local standpoint, it's a good deck. We all know it's a good deck, and it's a good card. But yeah, we try not to play it most of the time.
Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, but I have a vague memory that I've seen you in some Top Cut play pay the whole price for Arc actually getting it.
I've played Arc multiple times for full price, and it been the correct decision. Yes, yeah, absolutely. Like,
and it's still value. That's the thing. It's still value and still
value. However, I will say now it's just bonkers because you can just little Leela. And you might as well just get a free forward out of it. Basically, that's what you get. Exactly a free little Leela. So yeah. So we're gonna move into I think the top 3 here. The top 3 I think are pretty uncontended with. They're not fun at the local level. They're not fun at the competitive level. And they're all three of them are reasons that other cards didn't make the list because they weren't strong enough without these cards. The first card on that list is Gilgamesh FFBE. Go ahead, just take this one away.
Fuck this card. I hate this card so much. This card introduces so much goddamn variance into the game. People run it in their freaking chaos lists. They run it in their Wall 7 lists. And those decks, especially Wall 7, if Wall 7 doesn't hit Gil, the deck sucks. The deck is not good without Gil. Gil is the only thing that deck does, and that deck has no way to search it, and no actual easy way to set up the colors in the break zone. So it's just this high roll gotcha bullshit. And then sometimes you just have the Ama and the guild just dies. It didn't do anything.
Well, and by the way, it didn't have anything when it first came out, right? And then it had Adia, right? And so Adia was ways to get cards in your break zone. It was like nuts in Wall 7. So like then it even got better.
Yeah, but like,
does this card really do a lot without the 4 CP wall fixing the colors in odd decks?
So I will say it's not as good, obviously, but I would argue yes. I would argue that out of nowhere, a Dual Freeze Haster is good enough to like. It's good enough to piss people off without the extra text.
If you go back and you watch my game from the Winter Cup when I played against Key in the finals of singles, like he during combat had to he Tivist out an Axstar, and he had like a couple cards in hand, and I knew that if he had Gilgamesh in hand, I lost. So I had to use my Windgestola to negate the free play off of the Axstar.
Just because if he plays Gilgamesh, you're dead.
Yes, he still yes.
Just because of the chance.
Gilgamesh, I was dead. So like he didn't have the Gilgamesh in hand, but like he still got all of the other Axstar effects, right? Like it was so painful. Like I had to sacrifice my Y'shtola for part of an Axstar effect just because there was a chance to get a Gilgamesh in hand.
And a lot of what we're discussing right now is like the competitive level. I will also just say when you're like, I've play tested and for competitive events, but just with friends who are just playing, we're grinding games after games after games, and we're having a good game, and all of a sudden they draw the Gilgamesh and it's over. Or I literally pass the turn and I say, if you have Gilgamesh, I'm dead. Like, and I've probably said that over 100 times. If you have Gilgamesh, I'm dead. Yeah. I've said that at competitive events. If you have Gilgamesh, I'm dead. Like that, it does tilt me when they have the Gilgamesh, because it's one of the cards that if you didn't have the Mist Dragon, if you didn't have the Amaterasu, these are you can't play around it. There's like you need to draw one of those two cards to really play this. I guess like there's also Kuchulene stuff now, but if you don't have it, you die to the Gilgamesh. And again, the same reason that Odin 7 made the list, I don't think this card is good. So when you die, you're dying to a bad card. It's an FFBE card, Gilgamesh FFBE. It's a 7K. The art is like good, but it's not even a full art. It's a winged one. Like there's nothing about this card that makes you like drawn to it. It's like looking at 1-drop Leon. Like you could see this in Leon and say which one's the better card. And like prior to like the bonus cast, which may or may not be coming out, you would be like, both of them seem terrible. This card doesn't look good. Wall 4, of course, made it way better. But this card, what the price level go for? I'm gonna scroll down. Hopefully, it doesn't mess with the feed too much.
It was at $30 at some point.
It was a 40 foil.
But the thing is that at some point it was also $2. That's my point.
Chris bought like 3 playsets or something.
It was like $2 at some point, and then
he sold a bunch of them.
Wall 4 just boom. And the thing is that like there were people that were playing this card before while they were just jamming a bunch of different discard cards, and like they were having fun with it. And I think that's really cool. What a cool concept and a really cool casual card. But man, when this card became competitive, it did tilt me more than once, for sure.
One funny thing about this card is in Chicago when I played against Alex Tessmer in Top Cut, he was playing Wall 7. In both of our games, I had Yagrosh in my opening hand. And I played it turn 1, and you could just see the light drain out of his eyes.
So the counter tilt. There's the tilt, and then there's the counter tilt.
Yeah.
There's the counter tilt.
I was only running the one Yagrosh, and he's just like, he knew that for the rest of the game, his Gilgamesh was basically...
Tori, what else is Yagrosh really good against?
Wait, before you go, wait. I wanted to say something about Gilgamesh. I think Gilgamesh, for me, like the argument for Gilgamesh, because I love the card, is that it represents the same thing that you were saying about Refia. You have to fill your break zone and protect it so that it has all the colors. So this card actually goes off and becomes, that powerful. And I think if you did the thing and you play the card, you deserve.
No. So that's a difference. That's a difference with Refia and Ferris. and Wall 4, those cards oftentimes are drawing a lot of cards, and they have a lot of cards that reoccur things. Ferris gets the Refia, Art gets either one back out, Tyro searches, sometimes they're playing Thornton, like they have Lenna to get him back from the break zone. That's different. The thing is that you could do all the things with Wall 7 or Wall 7 deck with Gilgamesh or whatever deck you're playing it in. And the problem is, it's just like, did you draw the Gilgamesh? That's the tilt. It's like you just drew it, and if you drew anything else, I had the game locked. There's so many times you have the game locked, and all they have to do, I mean, imagine you have, I'm gonna make an arbitrary number, you have 5 blockers. You have 5 blockers. 5 is a fuck total blockers, right? How many can you attack with? The question, or the answer to that question is your opponent playing Gilgamesh? Because if he's playing Gilgamesh, the answer to how many you can attack with is 1. You can attack with 1 of them sometimes. Sometimes you can't attack with any of them. Sometimes, depending on your hands, you attack with 2 of them. But if you attack with 3 of them, you're dead. That's what's frustrating about Gilgamesh. Yeah, you're right. You put in the work. You built the shitty deck. And to be fair, okay, hold on. It's not even that hard, right? Sarah FFL gets you your combo card, the wall drop 7, and it gets you the 4-drop wall to put in your break zone. You didn't even work for it, man. They just given to you. What happens is you just drew the Gilgamesh, and that shit's what's tilting to me, man.
Also, I think there's a big difference between like I've seen Refia go off, like completely just go off, get into the late game, and still lose. Right? Like you can do all of your things to like get Refia online and like jump through all the hoops and get your combo off and still lose. When Gilgamesh hits the board, the game's over. Right? Like I think there's just like you're just playing a nice, fun game of Final Fantasy, and then suddenly, just out of nowhere, boom, game's over. Sorry, everything that up until this point didn't matter. I drew the Gilgamesh. I think that's a big difference.
So
that's why it's a tilt card.
That's why it's a tilt card. And so the thing is that for that reason, and for every other reason, right, is the same reason that Laswell is on the list, right? It's the same reason. When you draw, it's tilting. Sometimes it doesn't matter. When it shows up on turn 1, the game also ends. It dual freezes, which is you want to be able to play with your cards. That's part of the thing that tilts people, right? Like I played the backups, I played the forwards. I want to be able to play with those cards. That's where I came to play the game. It stops me from playing with those cards. Laswell also takes the cards from your hand. Laswell is one, and I will say Laswell is the mirror match breaker. That's why this card is probably you could consider it number 1, but we're gonna put it number 2.
Sam, I swear if Knights gets a ban because of this video, I'm not doing anymore.
No one gives a shit about Good Soup podcast.
Anyone at Square is watching this.
Yes. But. That being said, good riddance, John. Good riddance.
PSA, I disagree with everything that's going to be said about this card from now on.
No, that's not true.
Great card. It should exist, and it shouldn't be banned.
Good card. I don't think it should be banned.
Everything that Tori said, he would also see on April 1st.
Yep. Well, John said he would disagree with everything that was said from then on. So, you know.
The reality, yeah. So going back to Ramza and Krilla not making this list, like
I agree.
The freaking Knights deck would still be good without Laswell. It would not be tier 1. It would not be tier 1. You could lose locals to Knights. Yeah, you could lose locals to Knights, right? You might not bring Knights, but Knights would be a deck that you would respect people playing. Like Ramza into Krilla into Gawain would be really pretty good, right? This card is off color. I know that some of them started playing like the ESL to like get this card, but for the most part, it's off color. It's off color of Krilla and Ramza, John. And Gawain. And yet it's the best card in their deck. Maybe if you don't count Amaterasu, however you look at it.
Or Sid Rendell.
No. What?
A lot of the lists don't run.
That's a hot take. Yeah, that's a hot take. No. This card is way better than Sid Rendell, and it's not close.
List.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying like in the mirror match, like it's two Knights players. Whoever plays Sid Rendell can play it.
Yeah.
Well, sure, but like, yeah.
Yeah, Sid Randell is a little cancerous in the mirror, but they do run outs to it, right? They
Yeah,
run the
they're-
Garland backup. They run
Usually.
a bunch of things. Yeah, exactly. So I don't think Laswell's just so tilting. The thing is, this card's so cool. Like outside of the Knights deck,
Agreed.
like outside of the Knights deck,
Yeah.
this card's really cool.
Yes,
like if you're running it in like any other list, like there's so many decks I tried to build with Laswell before Gorilla came out because like this card's so fun. Like you could run like Ice Lightning Knights and run like Crystal stuff and like the 2 CP Lightning Ramza and then like you could do it in like Ice Fire with like Tyvis, and then you can run like Tyvis summoning out Axar and summoning out Laswell, and then also still run the what's it called? The Ramza, because he's for some reason a warrior.
Yeah.
Like so many cool things you can do. And then this deck comes along, and then like now Laswell's cancer.
If the card was a Black Knight, or a Dark Knight, or a Griffin Knight, or a Holy Knight, or a Knight Templar, a Knight of Etro, a Lord Commander of the Temple Knights, a Magic Tech Knight, or a Mystic Tech Knight, if it was any of those cards, I would actually be on board with this card. But it is just a Knight, and therefore it's too good. Like that, the job itself puts this card over. I think this card's actually really cool. I think the rug Laswell synergy is kind of interesting. Kind of makes for some interesting gameplay. Not fun to play against, but interesting.
No.
But interesting. But it being a Knight is over the top. It being a 2 CP Knight is over the top. A 3 CP Knight, this card would still be good, not great. Still be good, not great. It could be a 1 CP. It could be a 1 CP Holy Knight, and I think the card would be worse. 1 CP Holy Knight, and the card might be unplayable. Would you guys agree with that? Not unplayable. Not unplayable. Good.
I wouldn't say unplayable.
It would be good, right? And in the current metagame, not played, but good. Or maybe
I would run this card in decks with like no other knights.
Maybe
It's just fine.
Yeah, I guess in the one, if the 1 CP, you would play this card like with zombie, so maybe it'd be still really good. Like you play Earth Ice like monsters, and like zombie Laswell would be pretty good. It would still be less toxic than what we have right now. That's my honest opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anyone of us that thinks that it is not a tilting card? I mean, I know you like the card, John, but when your opponent plays Laswell and you don't draw it, that's got to be the worst possible scenario in the Knight's Mirror.
Mm.
It's up there. He doesn't even want to say it, but he agrees.
Worst case would be Sid Randell, and then I have to draw my outs to it. But yeah. I mean, I guess I play the card. I love the card. So when I made my list, I would have thought cards that are like borderline deserve a ban, and I don't think this card deserves a ban. I know a lot of you do.
I don't think it deserves a ban. I think it deserves a restriction. You should be able to play one.
I agree that it's tilting. I don't think it's top 2 or top 1 or top 3 tilting.
No, hold on. But to be fair, you have to understand your metrics are different than the reason I made this list. If you made the list, you'd make them on, hey, power level when your opponents play this. But I didn't make the top 10 most powerful cards that tilt you. I made the most tilting cards, and this is up there. This shit will tilt you. Yes, it's very good, but it's very good and tilts you. That's why it's so high on the list. It's your
which card you haven't mentioned that
Gasper or Thaumaturge, because those are both tilting.
That's not even an honorable mention, and it's funny because Story said I hate cards that flip cards. But he loves a card that searches inside the deck and plays it on the field, and it's really tilting to see a realm being played specifically with that face at the other side of the table. I've
not played against a lot of realms. I will say that like realm is a problem. It's too good. What it does is inherently unhealthy for the game, but that's not what this video is about. But it's not as tilting. When my opponent plays a realm, I think their win percentage goes up, but it's not unstoppable. I get so frustrated by the Laswell that I'm tanking my own win percentage. Like, the Laswell tanks my win percentage by being on the field.
I there's a difference between your opponent playing Realm and your opponent playing Laswell. The difference is that Realm player probably has like 5, 6 cards in their deck that probably search Realm. Like they probably have like 8, 9 copies of Realm in their deck, like more or less. So the fact when they play a Realm on turn 2, like that's what the deck does. It consistently finds the Realm and plays on turn 2. With Laswell, they sometimes run 0 searchers. So when they play their turn 2 Laswell, you're like, wow, way to draw it. It's fucking tilting out of your mind, right?
Way to always have it.
Like open Laswell and Corilla, you're like, wow, thanks. I love this game.
I think you brought a good point up is because John, Realm, the card itself doesn't work unless it's like a combo, right? But the Laswell, the card itself is a really great card, and I think that if a Knights player brings out Laswell and you're a Ruffian player, knowing that you probably have the outs to bring it to win the game, if you lose because of that Laswell, that's the reason why we're all tilted by it. It's because it can bring the best decks out there, and you can still lose with Knights.
I will back that up by saying that the Laswell deck also plays Amaterasu and Charlotte, which make that deck even more frustrating. And then the thing is that yes, it's directly the Laswell, but the Laswell first, like into like the Corilla, is like that's the thing is Laswell makes every card that has the word Knight on it following another tilt. It makes the turn 1 Gawain a tilt because they play turn 1 Gawain. Yes, they play turn 1 Gawain just so they can make you discard when they play the turn 2 Laswell. How obnoxious is that card?
I have seen Laswell trigger 5 times on turn 2 while also getting a discard. It's fucking ludicrous.
Sounds amazing.
All right, so let's go on to number 1. I don't think there's contention for number 1. I think that I'm not saying it needs a ban. I'm not calling for that, but I think that there's a lot of people calling for it. I will say that this card is almost unplayable at locals. It does make you discard. That's another thing. It is the tilting of all tilt master cards, and that is 4 CP Chaos. This card has decimated, in my opinion, honestly decimated a lot of local environments. Because it is because the thing is that the difference with like if you bring Storm or you bring like Gilgamesh or one of those other things is that like those decks are like competitively good and like the casual normal local person doesn't want to like play Storm. It's like not the archetype. Chaos is a fucking cool card. It's a really cool card. It does really cool shit. And your average local player wants to play this card. And it's actually just toxic to the local community. And it's tilting. Would you guys agree?
Mm-hmm.
I like playing Final Fantasy. When Chaos hits the board on turn 1 in Mills, Raij, and Fujin, we stopped playing Final Fantasy.
Well, you get to play half Final Fantasy, right? Like you lose 2 cards, maybe you lose a forward.
Yeah,
you get to hope for EX bursts. Yeah, you get to like.
But like, it's not fun. Like there was an implicit agreement when we sat down that we would like play a game, and then we are not playing a game. What we're playing is you dumping your whole deck into the break zone on turn 1, and then me dying on turn 2. Like that's not enjoyable. The funny thing is,
everything you're saying to me is tilting me because I'm a Hithlo player, so I get it. Like everything you're saying is like, wow, yeah, I'm a dick. But Hithlo is bad. Hithlo is bad. The difference is that if I play Hithlo, it's bad, and if I do the thing, I fucking deserve it. Okay, I don't care what you say because every card in your deck, Mist Dragon, Amaterasu, Kuchulain, Leviathan, Zidane, all of your cards stop me. This card cannot be stopped. Like, not by a fairway or a turn 1 Levy 6 EX burst. Like,
so, damage 1 Lev 6 is a thing of beauty, I will say.
Go ahead, John.
For this one,
against this card,
so everything this card has printed on it, every separate effect, I like.
it's a mini
like every sentence in a vacuum, is the type of card that I'd like. So I love this card for the fact that it allows you to play from the break zone, and it's only one of like 2 or 3 that allows you to do that in conjunction with like, the dredge package. It's also a burn card. It deals damage directly.
Yeah.
And it's also a 10K on a 4 CP
9K
forward.
9K for 9K. Yeah, it's
imagine that it's a 9K. So it's still more than what it's supposed to be. So the thing is that when I saw this card, I was really, really excited because I love to play degenerate games.
Me too.
When I saw the card and still when I read the card, I believe this card should have never been printed as it is. Like it should allow the type of play that it allows, but not all of the things in one card. Like I think it's a card that the type of play, and I mean dredge particularly, I think more cards should be printed that allow that type of play. But all the things that this card does, I think right now is the most powerful card in the game. Like printed. Like
on a single card, it is up there. Yes, it is top 3 at the very least. Top 2. In my opinion, maybe Realm is similar CP value, but like this just kills you, which is the difference.
I think
but the thing that
Clive
this card
and Realm.
does
Clive would be the top 3. Yeah, Clive, Chaos, and Realm would be my top 3.
So this card just like from turn 1, it can go off and it could immediately become something that you cannot recover from. And it's something that I love the card. I think there's just the game itself doesn't have more answers or more contendants to be, that power level. So I don't think the card should be in print. I personally think it should be banned. Because
I think restricted, but I do agree. Like some sort of
sure,
action.
I think the card should be dealt with professionally, like Dr.
I believe in no bans for personal. That's my personal thing. I believe in that restriction.
You can ban everything. I don't care. I'm just saying that this card is off the charts when it comes to power level. I would love to see more cards in other colors that allow this kind of power level. It's just like right now, it's the only card that brings this to the table.
So I'm gonna point out some things about this card, and then I want to hear Brian's take after I point out these things about this card. All right. First off, the art it's got beautiful art. Okay.
Yeah.
So it has beautiful art. It has a full art. It's a legend. You can play it in any deck. It's overpowered for its cost. 4 CP, 9K. It's from Final Fantasy 1. Not a lot of people know a lot about Final Fantasy 1, but it is kind of cool that it's from the original Final Fantasy, right? It's a card with the special. It has interaction with monsters. There's some cool chaos energy among casual people for chaos cards. It has chaos synergy. It's one of the few cards that plays with your break zone. So all of those things make it kind of a cool card for locals. Brian, what do you think as someone who the master of locals, you attend a lot of locals, you have a lot of people come to you for locals. What are your thoughts on this card as far as like, is this a tilter? Is this card fine? Is this card a problem because of what it does at locals?
I think I don't think it's much of a problem. I think it's a tilter when you lose to it because regardless, there's so much ways you can to help like get yourself back into the game after you first get in turn 1. But let's say if someone plays it and you don't have the outs in your own deck and you don't have no ways to do it, then you're going to lose. You're going to lose. So people hate the card. For locals in aspects, we actually don't have that much problems with it. We only have one player that consistently brings this deck. And I think it's healthy enough to say that we need this card to be circulated. And I think that even though the card itself does so much, even against my deck, I go to 6 damage turn 2, and if I don't draw my house, I'm going to lose, and that's the reason why I lose.
Okay, Brian,
I hate the card.
There's a lot of people who know you. They know what you do for the community. They know what your hustle is. So I think it's really fair that I have to ask you this question to see if we're weeding out any biases. How many full art chaoses are you sitting on?
None.
All right, that's a fair enough answer because if you answered 20, then I can see you're just like, don't ban it, don't touch it. It's totally fair. But if you were sitting on none, maybe you're sitting on none because it's a big mover for you. You're like, hey, look, this card's making me some money.
I have a question for all of you. Do you guys think so? You know that every time there's a ban, the developers are like, "Oh, we're so sorry. Like, we didn't intend this card to be this and that." For the longest time,
I'm sorry.
that's how it goes.
You're just saying that, and I'm looking at this card. I'm like, well, what do you intend it to do?
So that's my point. So for the longest time, the when they reveal a dark or light card, they're like, oh, we have to amp the power level because they're light and dark card. And the fact that you're playing this chaos with more chaoses in the deck, it kind of like gimps it because it's dark. Other chaoses are dark. I don't think the Earth chaos should exist. So just side note. But do you think like all the things that were printed on this card were like, oh, this is okay because this is a dark card and it's a chaos card?
All you have to do,
them,
all you have to do to fix this entire card. The entire card can be fixed. Very good. I think Tori would still consider playing it. I am already playing this card in two of my decks. Not Chaos, probably not Turbo Chaos. I don't play Turbo Chaos. All they have to do to fix this card is Flare S. Put the top 10 cards of your deck into the remove from game zone or whatever. Remove the top 10 cards from your deck. Boom. Card fixed. That's all you need. They knew that. Yeah. Well, what else would the special do? Of course.
Yeah.
If they
damage is fine.
Yeah. Or you know what you could do? And that card would still be good. Not nearly as good. Still be good. Flare S. Put the top 10 cards of your deck into your break zone. Period. Would still be good.
That's a bigger nerf than you think, because now we're not milling as cost, so we can like.
Sorry, you're right. It would say activate chaos. I don't know.
Or need to do something. Yeah.
Yes,
but like I think
easy fix.
As like a payoff for running like a monster deck, I think chaos is cool as like a one of or two of card.
As a payoff to running chaos deck, it's cool.
Sure. Yeah, it's a really cool if you ignore the special and you just look at the first effect, this is a cool mid to late game finisher that you slam on the board, wreck your opponent's hand, mess their board up. Like I did that when the card first came out and we were testing it, and it felt really cool and interesting.
Tori, you'd play this deck without the special in every single deck that you play if it was just 4 water, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Even if it was just like a 7K or something, like obviously we'd have to tone down the body if it was no longer a dark card. Yeah. But like I was testing it in like mono water and water lightning and various decks as just a card you slam down in the late game. And let me tell you, it just blew people out. Like it was great. It's a lot of fun.
I think that there's a reason why the 6 CP Chaos is named Chaos. Because if you had a 6 CP card that searched for this card, it would be crazy. Thank God they're both named Chaos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
I think this would be fine as one at a one of
follow-up question.
Restricted, I agree.
Like, if you think like design-wise, this is like an obvious like we're gonna ban this in the future, restrict or do something about it. What do you?
It's not obvious because they let this go for a long time so far. But yeah,
well, that's my question. Like, what do you think is the reason or like the train of thought for like developers creating a card like this? Do you think it's strategic?
I think it's a full art legend. Now to be fair, Doga was a full art heroic. They got rid of Doga right away, but a full art legend. I don't know that they're gonna ban that lightly. And I'm not trying to hype up all the people who are like, everyone wants bans. I'm not saying that this card needs to be banned. I agree with Tori, the restriction's fine. I don't love Aretas. I think they could have fixed it with one, but I do think that like they had to have known what this card was about to do, and they just printed Rajan Fujin. It wasn't long ago, right? Like even if they didn't think that they were going to be able to do it as fast, like there's cards like Luminous Puma that like you could just be like, get back 2 chaoses, do it 2 times, you take 2 more points of damage. I mill a bunch of cards, Rajan Fujin, blah 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 blah. Like. They had to know.
I don't think they thought of the mill deck. Unironically, I think they missed that. I think because this came out in the same set as like Witch of the Fens and Queena and a whole bunch of monster support cards. And I think they were thinking of like this is just going to be the finisher for those monster decks.
I disagree.
And I think they missed the
Red's meal.
I know, but the whole point of the mill was just to set up the first effect, not to set up Raijin Fujin. I think that's how they intended it, as like a monster finisher, and they just like missed the mark.
Well, they missed the mark is kind of
Because if the second effect, if it RFG'd, it wouldn't turn on the first effect, so it had to be that way.
Well, you don't need to turn on the first effect. The first effect is good on the card.
The idea is just
as
make
printed.
it a little less dead. They like their dark and light cards to not be like dead if you draw them early, right? So that way, if you drew 2 chaos, you wouldn't feel nearly as bad. Like you give it a special, and it sets up the effects. That way, if you draw 2 early on, it's not like a dead card in your hand. I can see why they did what they did. I just think that they missed the dredge combo.
So I do like what you said about like they that's why they put the special. I do think that most dark cards should have a special for that reason. That's a good point on the special. But the special could have been fixed so easily. Like to John's question, like, are they letting it go? Do you think they have any plans? I mean, like, I don't like bans, but I do like when they say, hey, listen, we're watching this card. We're aware of the toxicity. The thing is that like right near the end of the season, so many events were won by Chaos, and Chaos was doing actually really well. I think had Chaos done better at Worlds, I think we would see more talk about it.
It almost won.
Correct.
Stopped, like, there were like what three copies of the same 2 copies of the same deck in top 8.
Yeah, but that's not unhealthy. Yeah, that's not unhealthy. I think that like it's fine to have. I think it's fine to have 3-4 copies of the same deck if like it's a breakout deck or something. But I do think that like, all right. So let's actually let's style this back a little bit. We are moving into like, is this card too good? The question that we're really asking in this podcast is this card tilting? Mm-hmm. And Brian, you might say the card is fine, but when your local goes off with it, if your local does hit the turn 1 Chaos, the Neurage Infusion, that is tilting. Would you agree? Like, sometimes there's no counterplay to that.
I agree. Yeah, I agree, especially if you don't have an answer for it. Yeah.
Now that being said, real quick, I will say I love Chaos existing in like a restriction area because I love that it forces people to stop just doing whatever they want. Like, no disrespect to Tori, but Tori can't. I think that this deck single-handedly warped Tori's monster deck. I think that, if you recall the same way I do, it's like, look, Tori, you're losing the chaos. You're going to lose the chaos. You're going to lose the chaos. Lose the chaos. So then he tests it, and he's like, fuck, I guess the Leviathans are coming back in. We have to make room for the Leviathans. We have to make room for Fusion. Like, and I think that is a actually healthy part of the metagame to say, listen, you don't get to just do whatever you want. There has to be some checks and balances. And this is a great check, but it's too tilting one way or the other, I think.
I think my monster deck should have room for more than 11 monsters. That's just me. I don't like the fact that there's more EX bursts in my monster deck than there's fucking monsters because I have to tech for this goddamn card.
You also, correct me if I'm wrong.
I play monsters in my monster deck.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you were also playing monsters that you wouldn't necessarily play because of Chaos, because of Raj and Fusion, I guess I would say. Like, are you, like, at some point when you were playing Kodav and Bomb, those cards are not good. But Kodav and Bomb...
Bomb is there for Laswell.
That's a good example, yeah.
Defense straight with you.
Yeah.
Like, Bomb's there for Laswell. So is Quadov to an extent, right? But Quadov's also there to kill Reg Fusion. But the reason we have Quadov and Bomb is so we can kill Laswell with Charlotte on board, because you bomb the Charlotte and then Quadov kills the Laswell. But yeah.
But that isn't changing. That's number 2 on our list. Like, you are having to have some checks in your deck because of these cards, and I personally think that's healthy. I just think that this card is too tilting.
I don't know. I don't think I should have to include red cards in my Earthwater deck just to beat aggro. Right? I'm running these. They're off color. I'm running an Earthwater deck and I'm running Bomb just to kill aggro cards.
Right. So but annoying. what this card does is presents an interesting question to the metagame. And so I'm not questioning, like, there's going to be some disagreement no matter what between us on whether this card should be banned. Some of us probably think it needs to be banned, especially in the GC group. Some of it might think it needs to be restricted, and some people think it's fine, right? And I can respect all 3 of those decisions. What I won't say is that there's no way that this card is not one of the top 10 tilters of all time. Like, it's... Like, John, I'm interested to hear your perspective, because I know you're asking the questions. But what is have you had interactions with this card? Like, what is your? Interesting enough, I could see you play. You don't play this deck, but it does seem like a deck that I could see you playing.
I actually just bought all the cards to start playing this more often as I did with Knights, and just like probably to prove a point because it is my type of play style.
Yeah.
But so let me say this. It is my type of play style just because of the dredge factor. And every time you guys mention Chaos going off, you say, oh, it hits Raijin and Fujin, and then you're tilted. But for example, Brian, let me ask you, if someone brought Don Corneo, which was my card from last week, and did the same thing, would it be as tilting as seeing Chaos on the other side of the field? Like in itself, it's not just something that plays Raijin and Fujin. It represents a threat that you have to deal with, or that card alone will win the game. So I don't know. I'm definitely gonna play it. Either
I'm getting it off the screen. I'm just done looking at it. Sorry, guys. Keep going. I'm just done looking at the card. It's actually frustrating. He's sitting there, him spinning, taunting me. I got this cool ass art. I'm a full art, by the way, too. Like, all right, go ahead. Sorry, I couldn't look at him anymore.
So for me, it represents something that, and I'm saying this like really unselfishly. For me, I would protect it as I do Lastwell because I want to play it. I like how it plays. I like the play style, but I actually don't. I like playing games that end in like 3 turns and then I can go and walk around the room and see what everyone else is playing. I hate those like grindy control games that last.
I'm the opposite. I want to spend the full 30 minutes playing Final Fantasy and then go into the next round.
I know, but that's why I would protect it for myself. But everything that I said beforehand, like I think it should be banned or restricted, is because of the community. I see everyone getting tilted. I see locals not going back to locals anymore. I see people not wanting to go to tournaments because of it. And that's when I see a card that creates all of this shit. I think that's really when you have to agree that it's toxic. And you have to ask all these questions like, is it a design flaw or is it a calculated decision? Like, is this card meant to do something that we're not looking? Is it meant to tilt us? Is it meant to create all of this conversation? And
I doubt I doubt that there's a reasoning, but it is doing exactly that.
I will be playing it. I think it's incredibly tilting. I think a lot of people are calling for a ban. I will be playing it. I'm saying it right now. Like, if you see me in a tournament this season, I will be using it to get an invite. So that's it.
In my personal opinion, I hope you're only allowed to use one. But I do wish you good luck in getting your invite with your 1 copy of Chaos. There's a good chance I will also be using one because I love it in my monster deck. I think it's really cool. I think it's fun.
Yeah.
Play it around.
I might build one with monsters.
Play it alongside Loporits and Artemisians, and put it in your deck, and then you get it out later and play it whenever you got stuff. If you want to play 2, then you can use it with monsters to like Luminous Puma the special a bunch of times. Like, that's kind of cool. Like, you just kill your opponent with it.
I think I like the fact that Jack Garland is a Chaos card that you can also remove instead of just a monster. So not really a Chaos card, but there's a lot of people don't even use those Chaos cards, the other element ones.
The job Chaoses that aren't named Chaos.
Yeah.
They were running Jack Garland at Worlds. So he's got top cut play now. Congrats, Jack Garland.
The last thing I'll say about the card is I will say that it is probably from the newer sets, for the most recent sets. I mean, they've had a lot of great cards like for Argos, like the new Fenrir Leviathan. They've had some really good art. It is one of the coolest art pieces I've seen in Final Fantasy, period. Like, it's actually just my understanding, it literally looks like a painting. It's not 3D generated. It's a beautiful card. I love the full art. That's the one thing I say is not tilting about it. If you're gonna lose, at least you're losing to a beautiful card. Right? If you're losing to Laswell, it looks like a standard unit attacked you. And so the card's terrible. Anyway,
the reason I put Laswell number 1 on my list for
we're really not even mentioning Realm as something tilting because I'm really tilted because of that.
Realm is
Realm is okay.
Yeah, Realm's okay.
No.
Realm
is a combo card.
Like,
it's not a tilting card.
Realm isn't even the problem. If we really wanted to list cards that were a problem, we'd say a Tomos.
Well, we won't get into it. We won't. Yeah, it's too much of a deep dive here. maybe we'll get into top 10 reasons Realm is a problem. But anyway, I appreciate you guys joining us. I appreciate everyone for watching Good Soup. Hopefully you guys hit that like and subscribe button because I always forget to remind you guys. But we will be back.
Please leave comments below.
Yeah, we'll be back next week with another episode. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you later.
Good soup.